I'm going to tell you a secret. How to find time to get a haircut. So everybody who knows me is aware that here is somebody who is absolutely crazy because he works sometimes 20 hours a day. Very often, more often than not, at least 3 times a week, I sleep at 5 a.m. and I'm up again at 8 a.m. They also know and are puzzled by the fact that this man has so much other stuff going on in his life. So they know that I am an artist of sorts, okay? Not too good, but getting there. They know that I am passionate about cricket to the point that it is still, and I'll explain why, it is still my ambition to open the batting for India at Lord's. At one point, I thought my son will do it, but then now that means that you need to deal with some women, right? So I have renewed my ambition of opening the batting for India at Lord's. So I paint, I do this. I have had successful theatre, which ran to 6 shows which were houseful, and was invited to the Kalagora festival. So how does this happen? How do I get so much time? And the answer is very simple. Quite apart from training yourself to be fresh with 3 hours of sleep, the answer is be efficient in your time management and be focused. So when I talk about law to beyond, let me first tell you about the law. Anybody who comes to my chamber and asks, is there work-life balance? I will say, thank you very much. The profession is not for you, and definitely my chamber is not for you. Please understand, you are all young, and somebody mentioned that it may well be that you are, youngsters starting out in the profession. Please be aware of this. If you believe in work-life balance, you are in the wrong profession. Right? That's a wrong question to ask. You may be better off in another career. So that's one. But that doesn't answer the question as to how I get work-life balance. So here are a few tips. One is, in whatever you are doing at that particular point of time, you need focus. So have you read the book on mindfulness? Do you know this mantra, mindfulness? What is mindfulness? Live in the present. The present means that when you are studying a brief, you will not answer your phone. You will put your phone on silent. You must put your phone on silent. You cannot be distracted. Because when you are looking at a brief, you're trying to remember situations, you're trying to collate something you read on page 3 with something that you just read on page 87. And see, when you put both those things together, what that does to your case. You need complete concentration and involvement. You have to get involved in your brief. In fact, I often say, in UK, you had the system of law clerks, not our court clerks, but law clerks. What the law clerks do is, when the casee is in a trial, they will ensure that he is in a cocoon. When I'm in a trial, I like to be in a cocoon. Some of your best ideas, some of your best arguments will come to you when you're in the shower. And I don't want somebody. So many of my friends don't understand this. And, why can you not come for 10 minutes? I can't, because mindfulness, focus, concentration, and that's the only way that you will succeed in law. Be mindful, have complete razor-sharp focus, and think about your case. Now, I was privileged to There was a law campus that wanted to give the Fali Nariman Award, and we all decided that Mr. Arvind Attar would be the ideal candidate, and he gave a lecture which is absolutely fantastic. You must see it. This is the way Mr. Nariman used to work. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not comparing myself with Mr. Nariman, but this is at least one of the attributes. When you are doing your matter, you are completely immersed in it. There is no situation that, okay, well, I come home, even if I come home at 11 o'clock, I can put my feet up and watch TV. No. You cannot let your mind get distracted, because it is the time away from your brief that will give you your best ideas for the case. Then there is planning your time. So you plan in advance. There's something called case management. Right? Case management means that you have to be mindful of what is coming up, not one day before. Very often you will find people briefing you for tomorrow's case. That's fine if it is a small case. But for a suit, a trial, you have to see the last order. So somebody from my chamber will call up the briefing counsel and say, this is coming up next week. We were supposed to do XYZ. Is it done? Why? Because if it is not done, then next week I will cut a sorry figure before the bench. Right? Because unfortunately the truth is, lawyers nowadays do not do case management. They do not read the law. So I saw a 34, a rejoinder in a 34 which I was supposed to settle, and I said, oh my God, why? Because the rejoinder says the bench misinterpreted. But interpretation is not a ground available to you under 34. So read the law, be aware of the law, be passionate about the law, but more importantly, good facts make good law. Be very focused on your brief. Now let me come to how I do this and at the same time manage to find time for the other things in life. So just to give you an example, which is the haircut. So when I was in Bombay for this particular matter, that campus was in Thane. Okay. And I had to meet somebody at the airport hotel before I took the flight out, and the person said, I'm going to be late by an hour. So I said, okay, well, what am I going to do for an hour? And I said, okay, wait. Let me see if they have a haircutting salon. And I went in there, finished my haircut, a nice head massage, and I was ready for my appointment. So you have to find these little slots and fit in stuff that you would not normally have time for in between the slots. Now, if I hadn't had that 1 hour, and if I hadn't thought about why don't I just take my haircut, I would have been looking like a gollywog here, because this was about 4 or 5 days back. Right? Not the best, but it is what it is. But I did find that time and I fitted it in. Which is why the next thing that I say is, you have to work like a meat factory. Have you seen a meat factory? There's a conveyor belt and somebody chops the meat. Next. Chop, chop, chop. 8 hours a day, the person is only doing that. So it's like a meat factory on a conveyor belt. Finish one matter, get on to the other. Switch. So for each matter, mindfulness is the key, focus and concentration is the key. So if you complain that I'm not available on the phone, I'm not available. If you have something to do with work, there is somebody else who will take the call. If it is a personal matter, leave a message, I'll call you back. Not immediately. That's a routine, and people who know me know that this is the situation. Now, what about art? How do I find time for art? Answer is paint in oil. Because oil painting is unique in the sense that oil takes a long time to dry. So if you have spent 2 hours today to paint in oil, you will not be able to go on to the next session until the canvas is dry. And it doesn't matter how long the canvas takes to dry, because it will remain there. So if the next time I find a slot, haircut, remember? I found a slot. The next time you find a slot is 3 months later, it doesn't matter. The painting is still there, it's not going anywhere. Right? So a lady from the German embassy once came for lunch and found me in my studio and said, "Oh my God, this is very good. I want it." So I said, "Okay, take it." "How much?" So I said, "Okay, cut a check to my favorite animal charity." And the check was extraordinary. So I thought, do I have a second career here? So I said, "Okay, I'm going to try and do this a little more seriously." So I went to a curator. And the curator said, "Very good. But you know something? You must have only a particular style of painting so that anybody who sees this will say, 'Ah, Percy.'" I said, "But I paint for my own pleasure. I paint because I'm equally immersed in the canvas as I am in a brief." You know, again, oil painting is very good because oil painting is like butter on canvas. And it's a very good feeling when you try it. And I don't want to paint just because someone says, "Ah, Percy," right? That would be very boring to churn out canvases of a very particular same genre, right? Because everyone will recognize a Hussein, right? Some lines that is said to be a horse, right? Not for me. So I said, "Look, I don't want to have any exhibition. Thank you very much." Then somebody said, "Why don't we market you as a painter who is actually also a lawyer?" I said, "No, because I am a lawyer who is also a painter in his part-time." Right? So I said, "No." Now this was a PR person. So he said, "We will make sure that your canvas fetches something like 70, 80 lakhs. I said, "Look, all that is fluff. I would never buy that canvas myself for 70, 80 lakhs. Thank you very much." So what is the message here? You have to be true to what you do. I paint, and I must say that I'm beginning to notice that it's not too bad. Some of my canvases are not too bad. I'm now coming on to painting portraits, right? If you have to paint portraits, you have to have some skills. So I'm happy doing my canvases. Maybe posthumously they will command the prize. They'll all be left for animal charities, right? But right now I don't need that fame as a painter. Thank you very much. Similarly, for theater. Now, the secret to this is different. The secret is never lose your sense of humor. So that is lesson number 2. Lesson 1 is whatever you do, just focus. Everything else is lost. All right. Very often, if I try to eat when I'm looking at a brief, etc., my shirts regularly go for cleaning of spots, etc., because I eat while I work and I will spill it on my shirt. So be it, it'll get laundered. No worries. But you have to be mindful. The fundamental thing that you're doing in that moment is looking at your brief, not eating. Right? You can eat for nourishment, not to enjoy. So the second lesson is never lose your sense of humor. In everything in life, there is a funny moment. So my first wife was a Canadian, so I wrote a show, Married to a Canuck. Now it is a hilarious show, but my wife threatened to sue me if it was published. So another thing for posthumous, another thing to leave behind posthumously. I've written a book called Chutney Mary. It's essentially my life story, but then again, I think I would get tarred and feathered if I did it in my lifetime, if I published it. So that's another thing to be done posthumously. No worries, right? But how am I able to do these things? Because of focus on what you're doing at that moment, nothing else. And if it's a canvas, I am immersed in the canvas. Now, the only other thing I must tell you, that you can't, just like you get a haircut, you can't say, okay, I have an hour, I'm going to go and paint, and then come back to my next briefing. It doesn't happen that way. You have to be in the zone. You know what is meant by being in the zone? If anybody has played cricket, you know that there comes a time when you will have a yelling crowd, somebody outside the boundary ropes who's abusing you, right? Somebody who's cheering for you. You don't care. You are oblivious to it. You are in the zone. You are focused only on the bowler and the ball that is coming towards you. Everything else is reflex. See, think about it. Today's fast bowlers, from time immemorial, you have a fraction of a second to react. It cannot but be instinctive. It is instinctive. But for it to be instinctive, you can't say, oh, okay, so now this looks like a good length ball outside the off stump, so I should probably put my left foot forward, and then it looks to be overpitched, so I will try to whack it on the offside. By the time you think that, the ball is gone, the second ball is about to be bowled. So it is instinctive. Why is it instinctive? Because you are in the zone. So there is something called a zone. It's almost like self-hypnosis. And it is this level of self-hypnosis that you must reach when you are looking at your brief or doing anything else. But at the same time, you can't say, okay, well, I'll have an hour, I'll go paint. Because for painting, you need what is known as inspiration. So you can't just wake up one day and decide that, okay, today I feel inspired. You have to feel inspired. Right? And that doesn't happen. You can't make it happen. It's something which is natural. When your thoughts are in a particular direction, when you're thinking of something other than law, right? Then you may begin to get into the zone. So you can't do that. So therefore, the moral of the story is, you have to wait for it to happen, but then you cannot have a time deadline. There's no judge. There is no exhibition that is saying you have to give me 12 canvases by such a date. So I can afford to do that. I'm not answerable to anybody as to how many canvases I churn out in a year. On an average, I churn out 2 or 3, which is enough. And all 2 and 3 are different. Right now, it's portraits, but the portraits are all in a different style. And I don't care. I don't care about the curator or anything. So I'm not answerable to anyone. Why? Because it is a hobby. It is something that I like to do. Law is a very demanding mistress. And my first passion is law. Everything else I do, but I do it at my own pace, and that is something that enables me to do many things. And I think that is what makes somebody a well-rounded person. Thank you very much.